Hey, everybody. I wanted to do a very quick training on finances. So, this is a question I get a lot. And a lot of people say, Hey, Andrew, my restaurant isn't making any money. There's no money left over at the end of the month. And then I start digging in to some of the questions. So, first thing I'll ask is okay, when's the last time you got your profit and loss statement from your bookkeeper or your accountant? And I usually get responses like, oh, it's every month. Some people say it's every quarter. Some people say, oh, I review it every 6 months, to which I reply, are you crazy? Because if you don't know your numbers on a regular basis, that means you can't make decisions in order to change them, right? So that's like trying to say, okay, here we are at the end of the year. We overspent by $40,000. Now, what are we going to do to change it? Well, nothing, because you can't go back in time unless you've developed a time machine that I don't know about, which is probably not the case. So, rule number one, you got to check your numbers, then you got to check them often. And so, as I'm talking to everybody, I say, okay, so what are your food and your labor costs? And they say, well, gee, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what my food and labor costs are. I say, okay, so what were your food and labor costs last week? And again, they say, I have no idea. I'm still waiting for my numbers from 2 months ago from my accountant. And so again, we have this whole same dialogue about, hey, you need to actually know your numbers. So let me explain a couple things to you really, really quickly, a couple of general rules of thumb just to be aware of. So for most restaurants, you want your food and labor, which are your variable costs, you want those to be under 60% of all the revenue you take in. So if you take in $10,000, you want $6,000 or less to be spent on your food and labor. That's the main thing you are putting out. So that's at the very maximum. And that includes your management labor. So every labor, all of your food, everything that goes out in the product, everything that you need to put out your product and operate the restaurant, for everything that goes out, you need that to be under 60%. So that's really, really important. Another hard and fast rule to think about is that your rent should usually be 10% or less of what your revenue is. So that's going to tell you two things. Number one, if you look at your profit and loss statement and you say, hey, my variable costs are above 60%, red flag. If your rent is above 10% as a percentage of your revenue, that's another red flag. And what you really need to understand there is then you also have a revenue problem to deal with. So you have a cost and a revenue problem. And so you need to do two things, which is reduce your cost and increase your sales. So we can dive into the how of all of that at a different time. But what I want to let you know is that for most restaurants, 60% is the max, but the closer you can get to 50%, the better you will be able to do financially. So, an example for this in a quick service restaurant, you'll probably notice that your labor is going to be a little bit lower. We can usually get our labor around 20% plus management, and then your food is going to be a little bit higher because your prices are generally compressed a little bit. It's a much more, I shouldn't say more competitive, but you're not going to walk into a quick service restaurant and order a $20 meal. Normally you're looking around the, $10 to $15 range for that. So, in a full service restaurant, there you're going to start seeing your food costs come down a little bit, and you're going to see your labor go up because you have the front of house service and the back of house service. Your alcohol mix is going to, vary it a little bit based on your markup on that. But at the end of the day, what you want to be seeing is max 60% for both of those. And if you can get it closer to 50, like 55 is a good area to be, then 50% way better. So the closer you can get to that, the better you'll be. And that should include your management as well. And so, just a story from my own experience on this. I used to never be able to get my labor below 23% that didn't include management, so 27%. So I couldn't get it below that no matter what I tried. I tried, couldn't do it. Then we went through and we revamped our HR. So we changed the people that we were hiring. We changed where we found the people that we were hiring. We changed how we trained them. We did that more intense. We actually paid them more. Ironically enough, is counterintuitive, but we paid them more. So we actually got better caliber people, which could handle more than the people we were getting at the lowest price point. So we did all of this, and then we changed how we managed our people as well, changed the day flow of our operations, and we put better systems in place. All of that is to say that once we finally did that, our Labor went from 23 to about 18, 19%. So that's about a 4 to 5% swing. And our food costs, which has typically been at 37, we were able to bring that down to about 32 or 33. So again, altogether, we're talking about an 8 to 10% decrease in our costs because of the things that we've been able to do in our restaurant. And if you are doing $500,000 in sales per year, for example, all of a sudden you're talking about $50,000 at the end of the year per location. So what you really have to be focused on is how do we bring those costs down? Then once you do that, then you focus on driving your revenue up, which will really make things make sense for you, especially if your rent right now is a higher proportion of your sales. So I just don't want to blabber on all today. What I do want to do is show you a really, really, really easy spreadsheet that you can use to calculate your costs. So I'm just going to dive in to this. This spreadsheet, I like to say it's quick and dirty, but it's very simple and it gets you the results you need. So you're able to manage your costs effectively. I do this weekly, and for labor, I do it twice a week. Because here's the thing you need to know about labor is that at the end of the day, once an hour is gone, you can't not pay the person if it was slow. Once the hour's gone, that money, or you're legally obligated to pay them for it. So if you're overstaffed and your sales trend down and you don't adjust your schedule, that means your labor is going to be over. And if you don't adjust it midweek, it's definitely going to be over at the end of the week. And if you don't adjust it weekly, it's definitely going to be over at the end of the month, unless you take corrective action. Whereas for food costs, if you buy, 20 cases of tomatoes, yes, they may go bad before you can use them. So really, we only have to worry about our food cost from an ordering perspective if we're sending or if we're over ordering and it's going perishable, or if we're sending it out. Whereas if you bought, say, 18 cases of chicken that happen to be frozen, for example, you can still use that over a later bit. So what you need to focus on is from a labor perspective, focusing on what gets spent for labor and monitoring regularly based on things like the weather, your sales flow. Holidays are another big one. So all that kind of stuff. And for food, you have to look at what goes out on your plates, in your bags, however you send out your food. And then you have to look at your waste, because your inventory will have an immediate impact, but provided a lot of your stuff isn't as perishable, then you're not going to have to worry about everything going bad. Okay, so now into this spreadsheet, what we do here is we put in our opening inventory and we put in our closing inventory, and then we put all of the stuff that we ordered right here. So it's pretty simple. You don't have to do the inventory necessarily. It'll still function without it. It'll just, if you over order 1 week, it's not going to take the bite out of that over ordering, whereas this will give you a much more regular look at your food costs because you're factoring in that inventory. So if you order extra, then it's still going to be there and you're calculating that in inventory. So you're only really looking at what's used. So it is more effective and more accurate, but it's not absolutely necessary. It just will give you a good snapshot. And then for labor, here what we do is we put in our amount of labor that we put here, and then we put in our sales per day. And as you can see, like our sales for this week were fairly slow at 11,000. But then we put in our labor here, and then we put our daily sales. And this tells me that, hey, we have a labor issue on Saturday, and we really have a labor issue on Monday, right? Which is giving us an overage on our target. Our target's 19%. So all these other days are fine. So instead of trying to cut everywhere, I can go, hey, I just really need to focus on our Sunday, and I really need to focus on our Saturday. So then I skipped the week over here. We actually did that. And so you can see our Monday, our sales went up, and, all of a sudden we're back to 18% instead of 32%. And all of a sudden our Saturday problem was also resolved because we made the shifts that we needed to week to week. And so that's kind of what we're looking at here is you want to make sure you're making cuts and adding where necessary to make sure you have good service as well. But basically what this does is this allows you to get a snapshot every single week of where your numbers are. So then you can take the decisions and make the changes that you need to correct your numbers. Because I'll tell you this, it is possible to have a successful restaurant and not have a successful business. You could have customers, you could have great food, you could have happy team members and fail as a business. The numbers is where that changes, because at the end of the day, if you work so hard and you don't make any money, what is the point? And so this is the thing that a lot of people don't do regularly, which makes all the difference in the world for the long-term performance of their business. So I'm going to put this little document as a Google Doc link in the comments or somewhere. And so I'll put that there for you so you can use this. My recommendation is to do it once a week and then check your labor midweek so you know where your costs are at. And then you're going to be able to figure out pretty quick, hey, is this something I should be adjusting? So we know that our food cost was over here. So therefore, they're going to be making some decisions with the team members on how we can better get them to bring our food costs down, how we can watch our portioning, how we can watch our waste, and all those types of things. So that's the important thing to note. If you have any questions, let me know, but hopefully this was helpful for you.